All right, we're getting into the action here, guys. World Poker Tour Final Table Championship. We got my man Ike Haxton in the house, taking a break from 501K final tables. He's been in the streets, been playing hard. Ike, thanks for joining me on the Final Table show, man.
Hey, Joey. Glad to be here.
How's it going, man? I mean, you're having like an intense night last night. You've been hopping in these really high stakes games, and how did it go for the people? People were asking me. They told me to ask you about it. How'd it go?
I played just a couple hours last night. I won like 80K and 501K 2K game, so that's like one pot. But
it sounds like a lot.
Better to win than to lose.
But in reality, at 501K, 2K, 80K, it's like not a ton, what, 40 big lines, something like that.
Yeah.
Well, today we're watching some tournaments. I know you've been grinding the tournaments hard. I think I've seen you at a couple final tables or one big final table, I think, for the World Series of Poker. So
I played a bunch.
You what?
I've been playing a bunch.
You've been playing a bunch. You've been on the grind, kid. Well, let's get in this final table. We got our eyes on my man, Nick Petrangelo. I know that you know Nick Petrangelo, right? So you guys are friends?
Yeah, good friend.
What's kind of your thoughts on Nicky P here, man?
I mean, he's one of the best. He should be a lot of fun to watch him play. He's somebody I've played a ton against and hung out with away from the tables. Great player and a cool guy.
Cool, man. Yeah, I mean, he likes drinking. He's got some crazy videos. We got my man, Jack Gong here. He made the final table last week. He was a short stack last week. I got bad news for you guys. He's a short stack this week again. It's not going to be good. So, do you know, the theme at these final tables is that the short stacks, they usually end up busting very, very quickly, and they just kind of fold. So, this is all edited down. We're going to get to the heads up. The heads up here is epic. It's a sick match, and we're just going to go through some of these hands, and we're going to see what happens here. So, kind of play down there. We have Jake Schindler. He was eliminated here, but it wasn't too eventful, so we kind of... Sorry, Jake didn't get any runs here. He didn't get any hands. But in these situations, right, Ike, so we got a bunch of short stacks. We got Crazy Allure over there. He's got 27 big blinds. We got Art. Yeah. We're going to call him Art Pro Stack here. He's got 72 big blinds. So it seems like in these instances, the big stack just plays really aggressive, and the other players just wait for big spots. They shove the button, they shove the small blind, and they play relatively tight outside of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's so much value in just waiting around a little bit, seeing a couple of people bust, moving up a few positions in the payouts without having to play a pot. That
that makes a lot of sense.
That's just kind of how a final table goes.
Yeah. So here we got Elior opens up under the gun. He's got pocket jacks. Nicky P has pocket aces with 18 big blinds in the small blind here. So I guess he could 3-bet a small size, or he could potentially just shove all in here.
Yeah, he's just deep enough that he can really look at any of the options here. If he were a little bit shorter, you really have to just call or stick it in. Mm-hmm. Here he can have the medium-sized 3-bet as well.
That's what he goes. Elior, you're kind of in a tough spot because you still have 25 big blinds left. You do cover Nick, but you got some other shorter stacks there. So is Jax just feels like too strong of a hand to really?
Yeah, Jax is just too good of a hand. I mean, you're obviously never folding. You can maybe make a case for call rather than stick it in. I think sticking it in is kind of the default play here.
Right, makes sense, right? I mean, this is kind of one of those spots you seem sick to your stomach in some way. A little bit, right? You got under the gun, you get 3-bet from the small blind. He goes with it. Nick obviously snap calls, and Elior is... Nick's going to be at risk here. 81% favorites, pretty good spot. And now my man Elior's drawing a backdoor quad draw or the backdoor straight draw, because Nick flops top set, turns a 3. Elior's going to be drawing dead. And just like that, Nicky P, I mean, that's what you got to do sometimes. You got to win these all-ins. You got to get lucky.
Absolutely.
You got to get big pair versus big pair. I mean, there's no other way around it. You can be a great player, but you still got to run well at these final tables. So just like that, Nicky doubles up. And now Elior here, he's going to be on our short stack here. And now this is a hand I like to include because I've been seeing this a lot where a big stack opens and the other like 30 to 25 to 35 big blind stacks are a little bit timid to start playing hands with that player because we have an 8 big blind stack and we have a 12 big blind stack.
Right.
So in this situation, Nicky P is going to 3-bet here. And then when you're Art, how do you kind of, it seems like the chip leader kind of just rip over here and your opponent has to fold almost everything besides like aces or kings and ace, king, queen, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, relative to just playing for chip EV, it's going to be kind of more aggressive but tighter for the covered stack here. And so I like Nick's 3-bet here, and I mean, Art's going to be opening pretty wide. If you get shoved on, I guess you just go with it, but
He does lay it down. Yeah. So
Yeah.
you think that if Art shoves all in there, then Nicky P is gonna have to call it off?
I think so. I mean, I think it's about the worst thing he's going to call it off with, but I don't really think you're going to be 3-bet folding ace queen there.
Interesting. Okay. So Elliot here, he's in the short stack. He raises under the gun, ace 3. My man, Chen Gong. I like this guy. A real serious guy. You ever seen this guy before?
No.
No? He's a very serious guy. He's got some scores in Montreal. He made the final table last week. I mean, to make back-to-back final tables in these events, the
that's strong.
that seems pretty good. These are some tough players we're seeing at these final tables.
Definitely.
And he's going to go with it here. And Crazy Yeller is going to be at risk here. It says he has 29%. Okay. So he's all in. Giachan flops middle set. So that's not good for Elliot at all. He's going to need backdoor spades, backdoor straight draw. Turns a queen. And river's going to be a 5, and he's eliminated just like that. Like I said, we're going to see a couple quick eliminations here. We didn't really have any interesting hands happen up until this point. The interesting hands are really going to happen in the heads-up match. These are just kind of formalities that we're going to see. And you can kind of see the payouts here for the 6max event. So it's a $3,200 buy-in. And first place in these events has seemed pretty big, Ike. I mean, last week we saw $540,000. This one, look at it. $494,000 for a $3,000 buy-in event.
That's a big poker tournament.
That seems that's big, right? I mean, I'm not a tournament pro in terms of these payouts, but that seems massive for the buy-in.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, winning much more than 100 buy-ins in a tournament is obviously a really good result.
I'm pretty sure that's a lot. I mean, so it seems like with these events, so what I've noticed these events is that they're satelliting in a lot of people. They're doing a lot of satellites. So what I would imagine, I don't know for sure, but I would imagine a lot of weaker players end up getting in. And that just creates a not only potential overlay, but also a ton of value in that there's just people playing these main events with big first prizes that might not necessarily have that skill level. So if you're one of the better players or even one of the weaker players, that seems to present a spot where it would be pretty valuable.
Yeah, for sure. A field with a lot of satellite winners is something that tournament pros are always excited about.
Interesting. Okay. I mean, maybe that's something to look out for if you're at home and you're like, where do I find the softer tournaments? Maybe you just find out, well, where are they satelliting a lot of people into? And then
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if you're like trying to decide where to take a shot at a higher buy-in than you'd normally play or something like that, definitely like look at what tournaments they're running satellites for all week, and those are always going to be the biggest fields and the best value.
And I guess theoretically that would be like a big Sunday tournament or any big tournament series. That's probably where they have bigger guarantees and they're trying. So it's kind of should be easier to identify. We got my man Giachin here. He's got the pocket aces. He's going to raise it up. Nicky P's got Jack 10 diamonds here. What do you like here from Nicky P?
You can call or you can 3-bet. I mean, you're definitely playing the hand. I'd probably... Oh, yeah, it's even shallow enough to stick it in for sure.
Yeah, so he shoves all in. So obviously in this spot with the big blind, Arseny, that's a crazy name. I don't know if you can say his name. I'm going to call my man Arson. So Arson has 11 big blinds, so Giachin should be calling here pretty tight, I would imagine, right?
Yeah, you can't open quite as loose into an 11 big blind stack in the big blind as you would if they had, something you still covered, but a little higher, like 17, 18.
Mm-hmm. Well, unfortunately for Nicky P, he's going to be all in here against pocket aces, and Giachin's going to be at risk. Let's see what the flop comes. Flop comes Jack 7.
Lucky Nick.
So Giachin's going to need an ace. Turns a jack, and that's going to be 4 of a kind for Nick Petrangelo. And my man Giachin is going to be eliminated, unfortunately, in 5th place. 2 quad jacks. So Nick, I mean, that's what's got to happen, right? You got to shove all in there, and you got to run well. He chases down aces, and just like that, he's near chip lead. So with the 2 big stacks, 71 big blinds, 62 big blinds, and the 2 smaller stacks in there, I mean, they kind of light it up quite nicely here. So they're going to be...
for sure.
They're going to need a lot of help, though. So just like that, Petrangelo. And now they got this graphic. I'm still getting used to these graphics WPT's using. It's a different layout, and you can see here the payouts, $128,000 for Giachin. Next place up gets 192, 278, 494. So we got
you can see that these guys have just folded for a little while or now cashing for 120K more than they were guaranteed at the start of the final table. So
that's why you play so tight in these situations,
yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Yeah, that makes sense. So King Jack offsuit here for Art, and Patrice has pocket 5. So obviously Art's going to be playing very aggressive on the button. Patrice has pocket fives. I'd expect him to go all in here, but is there some
I think
merit
that's
to not?
the standard play here. Sometimes you see people calling in these spots at a final table, but I think you just want to go all in with a small pair in that spot.
You can kind of see he's a 52% favorite here against his specific hand, but Art's in a decision. So Art's got to call about, what, 10 more big blinds here? King Jack offsuit. What do you think about that? Is this a border that seems very close? If it's a fold, if it's a call, it seems right on that border of call or fold here, especially with the 80 big blind stack that Art has.
Yeah, feels to me like you got to call. If you're not calling this hand, then you're either going to have to open tighter than I'd like to be opening here, or the big blind is going to have profitable shoves with all kinds of mediocre stuff.
Mm-hmm. Let's see what Art does here. Get my play button going here. So Art, King Jack offsuit. And the big stack. So he does actually fold here, and Patrice is going to win a little bit of chips there.
That feels a bit tight to me. Maybe he has been playing with Patrice for a while and has a read that he's not messing around here.
Mm-hmm.
If you start raise folding hands like King Jack off at those stack sizes, then you're going to be very vulnerable to people doing stuff like shoving over your raise with King 9 suited or Jack 8 suited.
I guess the question would be in that situation is, you don't necessarily know that they're doing that until you see the whole cards back. So maybe if you're in, right? Unless you know for sure that they might be doing that, but do you think you were ever, unless you play a lot with that player, you're ever able to pick up that much information to know that they might be exploiting you because you're playing too tight in that spot?
Well, no, it is hard to know in advance whether or not they're doing that, but it's the same kind of game that you're playing when you are bluff catching on a river, where you don't know this guy's bluffing until you see it happen, but you kind of have to just start from the assumption that your opponents are playing reasonably well and call the hands you're supposed to call until you have a reason to believe that they're playing too tight and you can take advantage of it.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, same thing for cash games. If you go play live, or if you go play a live poker cash game and you don't see someone, you haven't seen someone really make a move yet, you might be folding on a river. Whereas if you see someone bluff a few times earlier, you're going to be more likely to make an exploitative call in that situation. So
yeah, it's the same kind of thing, even though it's pre-flop.
Makes sense. Yeah, we don't have that PLO cash game very much.
No, that doesn't really come up in PLO pre-flop. It's just, yeah.
PLO cash game pre-flop, so different. I mean, I look at this and I'm like, PLO cash call. You know, you're playing a lot of hands pre-flop at PLO cash games. So Patrice here is going to shove all an ace-10 suited from the small blind. Arson has king 9 suited. I imagine he's going to call here. And he does call. And he's going to be at
for
risk.
8.5 bigs, king 9 suited is a big hand. You just call it off.
So
it's nice that you're against one of the other short stacks, too.
Yeah, that makes sense.
If you do happen to win here, now you're a lot closer to laddering up. Whereas if you double through one of the chip leaders, that's not as big an effect.
Well, he hits a king on the river there. And he is going to actually double up there. So nice hand for Arson. So Art here's pocket 8s in the big blind. Or I'm sorry, in the button, rather. Patrice has ace-5 offsuit, big blind, 12 big blinds. This seems like another 3-bet call spot. Shove or call, either option potentially could be okay.
Yeah, this is a hand I like going all in with, especially you're the shortest of everybody by a decent margin. Ace-5 is a hand that likes to get all in pre-flop.
Yeah, makes sense. Well, Patrice does just call. He does end up flopping top pair here, so Art has pocket 8s. Can't think your opponent has an ace here, most likely. I mean, when your opponent just calls pre-flop here, maybe you put on like a suited connector type hand.
It in off of this stack. I might be calling ace-2 and ace-3 off.
So Art does c-bet here.
Suited aces as well.
Yeah. Art c-bets here small. Patrice could be check calling or check shove. I think check shove or check call seems like the only two options. He does check call.
I actually think you can make a small raise here. I don't think it's an all-in only spot. It's a very static board, so you can kind of just min-raise and play 2 or 3 streets here.
Interesting.
With your bluffs and your value bets.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that a lot of players don't think about when they're 10 big blinds, 11 big blinds. They're just thinking the only option I have is to just check shove here, right? They wouldn't necessarily consider, well, maybe I make a small raise, and they probably uncomfortable playing that strategy. So if you're
it's difficult. You start looking around at some of the like solver outputs in 10 big blind stacks. It turns out that there's actually quite a lot of subtlety to playing those spots, and you do play 3 streets of poker, even though the starting stacked pot ratio is small. You check and they bet 1 big blind, and you raise to 2.5 big blinds, and then you bet 1.5 big blinds on the turn, and
now we're playing some poker, right? I mean, that's what I've noticed from studying these tournaments, the 2-card pot Omaha tournaments, is that the 10 to 15 big blinds a little more interesting than I first thought it would be, right? There's some real, like, it's different. It's just a lot different than cash game, 200 big blind stacks and flop turns, rivers. Now a lot of the intricacies happen on these flops, as you said. Guy see bets, what does he see bet here? 2.2 big blinds. The other guy makes it 5.2 big blinds, right? Like that's sort of where the interesting things start to take place, and it's just a different way of playing poker, and it's a whole fascinating game in its own right too.
Yeah, there's a lot more to it than a lot of people realize.
Yeah, that's certainly one thing I've been noticing here. Patrice is going to check call, and I got bad news for you, Ike. The turn's going to be an 8, and he's going to be drawing dead.
A lot of people have been dead on the turn this week.
Sorry, Patrice. I'm sure you're out there watching right now. But, I mean, what's Art going to do here, right? 7 big blinds in the pot. Now he's thinking, how do I get rest of this guy's
There's
stack?
like 1.5 times pot to play here, a little bit less. Yeah, I think probably I'd just be betting a third to half pot on the turn and then put the rest in on the river. He goes even a little smaller than that, which is fine.
Yeah, he's just hoping to get called by a jack, hoping this guy, I mean, basically hoping he has a jack. If he has an ace, he's stacking them, but with that size bet, targets a jack as well, too. So now Patrice, once again, can check call or check jam here.
Yeah. You can do either, but I think I mostly like a raise here. It would be a shame to let your opponent just like bet that size with jack 9 and then check behind or something.
So Patrice in the tank, I mean, he's probably like, what do I do here? I mean, he does go all in.
I think that's the best play.
Yeah, I mean, he's drawing dead. 0% for Patrice Brand from the UK. And just like that, Art gets lucky. I mean, it's what happens, right? He gets lucky on the turn. He's going to knock out Patrice in 3rd place. And we're moving up quickly. This heads up, and this is something I'm once again very excited to get to, because the hands that these two play heads up, they played for 3 hours, Ike.
Oh, wow.
It took an hour to get to this point, and these guys played for 3 hours heads up. So as the match, it starts off tight, and then some crazy shit starts happening, okay?
I'm excited for this.
I mean, these hands are really crazy, man. I'm telling you. I'm watching like, oh, my God. So just like that, Patrice takes home $192,000, and Arson, the guy really didn't play many hands. He's up to 3rd in chips right now.
Yep.
So here's an interesting...
3rd of 3.
Yeah, 3rd of 3, exactly. So here, Art, big stack, pocket queens in the small blind. Nikki P, ace 10 offsuit, big blind here. See if Art, some people might limp here.
Yeah, I think it's okay to limp or to open raise here. I think you should do a little of each.
So he's going to go 3x here. 2.4.
Yeah, 3.5.
Yeah, 3.5. So Nikki P, 3-better call. He decides to call with ace 10 offsuit.
Yeah, I think I like mostly calling. I think you don't want to end up all in pre-flop with that hand, and it's a bit too strong to be 3-bet folding it a lot.
Makes sense. So in this spot, if you're looking for hands to 3-bet, you want to be looking for hands that you. So I guess like what would be a hand that you would think about 3-bet folding here versus. So this hand is maybe too strong to do that with, so therefore you choose to call with that hand.
Yeah, most of the time anyway. And then I think 3-betting to fold with like ace 6 off or worse,
so like a high
king
card
9
blocker.
off to king 5 off. Mainly looking for offsuit hands. A lot of it's going to be that kind of one big, one little offsuit hand. Ace 4, king 7, queen 8.
Yeah, it makes sense. So Nick just calls, and Art still ahead, king 8-8 flop, pocket queen still ahead. Let's see what he does here. Do you feel like your opponents are calling pretty wide in this spot?
Yeah, I mean, not that wide because you do cover. There's quite a bit of ICM pressure here. You've got like kind of a 4-2-1 distribution of stacks here. The chip leader has 80, middle stack has 40, short stack has 20. So that's a spot where the 40 is really trying hard to get heads up rather than to go out in third. So,
So
they
wanna
are going to be
preserve the
folding a
chip
bunch
stacks.
pre, but they're also going to be slow playing a lot of medium to strong stuff like ace 10, middle pocket pairs. So this is a spot where like the opener is less capped than the caller. He can have aces, kings, queens, and the caller can't, but the caller range is quite strong as well.
Well, it gets checked down to the river here. So Art does have a full house by the river. Check,
Yeah.
check, flop, check, check, turn. See if he tries to get some value here. Maybe get called by ace high or potentially a smaller pair. And he gets called. So he bets 2.5, gets called pretty quickly by ace high, and wins a little pot, chips up just a little bit.
Yeah, that looks like a well-played hand by both to me. You can do other things too, but I think both sides should play it like that a lot of the time.
And just like that, Arson has ace king. He's got to be loving it right now. Ace king, blind versus blind, three-handed.
Yeah, you can kind of do anything here.
He goes 2.5x or 2.5 million.
Yeah, it's like 3.5x.
Art has pocket jacks. I expect him to raise. He does shove.
Yeah, I think you just put it in with jacks here.
Arson's going to call. He's going to need an ace or a king here, and he'll stay alive. And then we'll have a real interesting tournament here. 7-5-6 board. Jacks are still ahead. Turns a 9. Needs an 8 for a chop. Not the worst result here. River's a 5, and just like that, Arson is eliminated in third place. He chipped up quite. I mean, he laddered up quite nicely there. He could have. Not bad. I mean, hey, listen, these tournaments, I'm telling you, man, watching these things back, the guys can finish in 6th to 3rd, and it's so much of a money difference. And those pay jumps can impact your like mentality of how your year. I mean, right, 278,000 for third place. 6th place, you get 93K. That's like makes your year for a lot of these people, and your perception of your entire life is different.
If your average buy-in is like $200, $500, which is pretty standard for like a mid to high stakes tournament grinder. Yeah, it absolutely changes your year to get a big final table score like this in 3K.
It's crazy. I mean, you're reviewing your year, and you just say to yourself like, oh, I won so much money. I'm so good at the game. You're telling your friends think you're so good. And reality, like a few guys busted before you and you want to double up. And like, that's the only deal. Well, I guess that's how it goes sometimes, man.
I mean, that's just what playing tournaments is like. You take away your biggest score in any given year and it looks very different.
Yeah, that makes sense. Kind of scary to think about it.
Yeah, I mean, for sure.
So here we go. We got, so heads up match here. We got Art starting off with about 85 big blinds. Nick has about 36 big blinds, so he is definitely an underdog right here, and he's going to raise it up king 10 offsuit. He's going to min raise on the button. Art's going to 3-bet with ace 3 offsuit. And Nicky P's going to end up calling here. And we're going to see a little...
This looks totally normal from both sides here.
Well, let's see if it continues to look normal here. King Jack 6 flop. So Nick flops top pair, and Art's got he's got the nut flush blocker. And you know, in PLO we value the nut flush blocker slightly different than we do in 2-card pot in Omaha. So I'm still trying to wrap my head.
It's not quite the same in Hold'em.
I'm still trying to wrap my head around that, because when I see the nut flush blocker, I'm like pot, pot, pot. This not the same. So it's a different kind of scenario. So Art is going to be able to, I guess when your opponent calls here, what do you think about king 10, king queen, king jack, jack 10 suited?
I mean, all the Broadways, a bunch of suited, mostly anything, some pocket pairs. A lot of people will just always 4-bet rip it in with a pocket pair here, and that's not necessarily right. I think Nick can have a lot of the medium pocket pairs at some frequency here.
Well, he's going to get checked too, and he's going to bet 2.9 into about, what, 11 million chip pot?
Yeah, it looks like about quarter pot.
So Art here, backdoor straight draw, backdoor flush draw. See what he decides to do. does check call. See the turn. Turns to be a jack of diamonds. See how Art plays this one. He does check.
Yeah. And like a bunch of stuff got here, but this is heads up poker. You don't need to be too scared that your opponent just has a flush or trips here.
Mm-hmm.
King 10 is still looking very strong after this action.
So Nick does check back. Pot's 21 big blinds.
Yeah.
So river's an 8. Nick still has the best hand.
You can bluff or you can check here. You're going to get to the river with some queen high and 10 high combos as well in this line. And I think those are going to be mandatory bluffs, but the ace high, I think, could go either way.
Well,
I wouldn't fault any play here too much.
Well, he is going to decide. It's time to put the pressure on Nick Petrangelo here. I don't think this guy's got a jack. I don't think the guy's got a flush. And he's going to make a pretty big bet here, Ike. He's going to put them all in.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that. I mean, you can easily be up against a 6 here. A bunch of the hands that bluff the flop, river, and 8. You're going to get folds from those hands quite a lot.
And he does get a fold from Nick. Nick folds a
even
king 10.
from king 10. That's a pretty big fold.
Yeah.
You can check behind the turn with trips or a flush, but you're not going to do it all that often. King 10 is pretty high up in your range here.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big laydown.
Yeah, that seems like a big laydown, right? So now Art's going to be 4-1 in chips, 100 big blinds stacked to 25 big blinds here. So Nick's got his work cut out for him here. You can kind of see right here, 78 million chips to 21.4 million chips. But these are long blind levels. There's still a lot of room to play. It's certainly not over yet by any means. Artsiom Pro Stack. I mean, it's a great last name, Pro Stack. Last week we had Shingus Satube EV. He had EV at the end of his last name. So let's see. So Nick looks like he's playing all of his buttons here. He's going to limp in with the 4-deuce offsuit. Art has the jack-8 of hearts.
Yeah, it heads up with an ante. You're playing very nearly every hand from the button until you get down to a stack in like the teens or so.
So you're comfortable. You're playing any hand. 4-2 offsuit, 7-2 offsuit. Maybe you're fold 7-2 offsuit, but you're playing all the hands.
Yeah.
Okay. So in this hand, Art flops top pair and Nick flops bottom pair. It goes check, check.
Yep.
Turns a 3. So Art, top pair, jack kicker. Nick turns it open and straight draw.
Yep.
So let's see what happens here. See if a little bit of money gets in by Art. What's he going to do? 1.5 million. 1.5 big blinds. Not many.
Yep.
Nick's going to call.
Yep.
River's an 8. All right, so Art, River's trips. Nick has to think his hand might be good here. His opponent could have a 3. Of course, he's going to have some bluffs as well, too.
Yep. Yeah, Nick's hand is reasonably strong at this point. There's no reason he has to have a pair to have gotten to this point. Any 7, 6, 2, or ace is calling the turn bet pretty much. So he has tons of unpaired combos here.
So Art does decide to go for an overbet here. He bets 6.4 million chips.
Yeah, it's what, like 1.2x pot or so.
Mm-hmm.
Tough spot for Nick. I would definitely be considering a call here. You're going to bet the flop quite often if you have an 8 or better yourself. So you have some 5s and some 4s and some 3s, and this is a perfectly nice hand to call with.
Well, he does call, and he's going to see the bad news. Art's got trip 8s here, and Nick's going to be down to 16 big blinds. But we go ahead. Like I said, I cut out a lot of hands in here, so we don't get to see a lot of the back and forth, So Nick's he's still alive, still 21 big blinds here. It's not anybody's game. He raises it up king 6 offsuit on the button, makes a min raise with his hand, doesn't limp in. Art's got a beautiful 10-8 of spades. He decides to call.
Mm-hmm.
Flop comes down king 10. So good flop for Nick. He's got trip kings. Art also has the 10, backdoor spade, backdoor flush draw. Does he have backdoor? Yeah, okay. backdoor flush draws and backdoor straight draws not as relevant in Texas Hold'em as it is in Parliament Omaha.
Maybe not. They can be pretty important.
Yeah.
I mean, in a spot like this, 10-8 is just a very strong hand, regardless of your backdoor flush draw.
Okay.
You flopped a pair on a paired board. That's a big hand, and you're never folding it on the flop or turn regardless. But there are a bunch of spots where backdoor straight draw, backdoor flush draw is the deciding factor in whether or not you continue.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I know.
So he has check called here and now led the turn?
Check call, and then he leads the turn into Nick. Nick's got the king 6 offsuit. Yeah. It seemed like a spot Nick would just call here.
I don't know. I mean, it's a small bet, and you have a good hand. I think a lot of the time you want to put a raise in here. It's going to be hard to get stacks in if you just call, and you certainly have a strong enough hand to be wanting to do that.
I guess
you kind of have to treat these small leads almost like they're checks and raise them almost as often as you would bet if you were checked too.
Oh, really? Interesting. I guess the 10-8 suited, what do you think the thinking's behind there in terms of check call and then leading here?
I guess what he's thinking is that it's good for his range anytime a card lower than the 10 comes off here, because he's worried Nick has a lot of ace queen, ace jack, queen 9, jack 9 stuff that interacts with the straight draws there, and he's giving himself more of a range of like a lot of pairs of 10s and ace highs. I don't know if this is such a good play, but I think that's what he's thinking, is that now that a low card came off, the 10-8's looking a little bit better than it was on the flop, and I want and get a little bit of protection, force a fold from something like jack 5 that might just check behind, get some value from ace highs.
Well, let's see what Nick does here. King 6. Ike says he thinks he likes a raise here. Be able to get stacks in by the river. I mean, are you really getting stacks in with a 10? Is the guy going to bet call a 10 here? Yeah? Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
So
not 100% of the time or anything.
Right,
but
yeah. Makes sense.
Trips in a raised pot, 20 big blinds deep, your hand is definitely good enough to be trying to put most or all of the money in.
Well, he does raise pretty small here, so 1.5 million chip bet. Nick makes it 4.6. And now Art, this is probably the spot you don't want to be in once you do check call lead. You don't necessarily want to get raised, and you're not loving your situation. And he does fold.
Ooh, that's a tight fold.
Yeah, interesting play. Interesting hand all around there. I mean, that's an interesting hand. I don't know what's that. Very interesting hand there. So Nick has 10-7 offsuit here on the button. He's going to raise it up. Art's got the queen jack offsuit. Beautiful hand. Shout out to Jamie Kerstetter, Tony Dunce, Matt Savage. They're in the commentary here. You probably won't be able to see them after I put the overlay on here, but they're in here. They were streaming these on Twitch. Every final table is on Twitch, Party Poker and World Poker Tour channels. If you guys want to, this hand is insane. So Art,
this doesn't look like the start of an
I'm
insane.
telling you, watch this.
That's what I love about Heads Up No Limit.
So Art has, okay, let me run through this hand. This hand gets nuts. So King 3-5, 3 diamonds. Art has Queen Jack, so he's got a backdoor straight draw, a Jack high flush draw. Nick Petrangelo has nothing. He's got 10-7. He's gonna go ahead and he's gonna continuation bet 1 big blind here. And now Art. See what Art does here. So what's that? A quarter pot bet?
Yeah, just under.
It's a quarter pot. So Art's gonna check call. And then the screen goes black here on their end. I don't know what happened with the technical difficulties. This is when you know things are going to get crazy, when the World Poker Tour setup goes dark. It's going to come back. And there it comes back. So the turn is a 7 of diamonds. And now Art, once again, goes with that lead. So Art's going to lead with the Jack high flush. And now Nick has turned to 7. So he's got something. I mean, it's better than a 3 or 5, right? It's better than nothing. So he's got a decision to make here. My default would say he would fold. What do you think?
I actually think it's a little bit too strong to fold. You've got second pair. It's not a very big bet. It's not looking good, but I think I want to continue here.
At least call one straight and then decide what to do on the river.
Yeah, or you can raise right away as well. I don't think that's a terrible play.
Interesting. So
I think I would most often call here, maybe raise a little bit at the time.
Well, you and Nick might be having some sort of connection here. So Nick here gets let into. Obviously, he did raise him previous, right? And there's been other hands where this has come up. So
yeah, I mean, he might have some sense that Art is leading these spots more than he should be and then making tight folds after he does. I don't know what the delay is on the stream here or how long ago that 10-8 hand was, but that's a hand that would stand out to me if I was playing a heads-up match, is this guy check calls and then he leads a spot where it seems a little dubious, and then ends up folding a really strong hand to a raise.
So that would make you a little more inclined to put pressure on him in this kind of situation.
I'd at least be aware of the fact that it happened, because there's a bit of a leveling game too, where like he knows I know that hand happened, and now maybe he's going to take this line as a trap in the future. But yeah, it definitely matters as you're looking at this spot here.
Okay, so Nick raises Queen Jack diamonds. I mean, I'm not thinking he's going to lay this hand down at any point in time. So this is, I guess, what you're hoping for. Maybe you're not hoping. Maybe you're just hoping to get called, and then you're hoping to bet the river and get called again. But he does bet. He gets raised, and then he's going to call. The river's a queen. So he still has the third nut flush.
Yep.
So Nick raises the turn, gets called. Have to think your opponent's got a flush there, right?
Yeah. I think small chance they have two pair or a set, but almost never a set since they just called pre. Yeah, they're going to usually have a flush here.
Well, Nick's going to shove the river, and you got the jack of diamonds. I'm assuming you'd call here, right?
Specifically with queen jack, I just don't think you can fold. The queen looks like it doesn't matter that much, but it does.
I think so.
You're unblocking bluffs here quite a bit by having the queen, because you see Nick is making this play with 10-7. He could be making this play with queen 7, and now if he rivered two pair, he'd check behind. So the queen blocker actually really matters here, and I would not fold this hand.
Well, let's see what happens here.
I'm guessing he folds because it's not over yet.
I know, right? So Art's going to tank down. Art is going to lay it down. The commentators are shocked there. So Art folds the jack high flush, and I'm sure he's going to look back at that hand and have a lot of regret there.
Yeah, that's not going to feel good watching later on.
Not at all. So here, next hand here, we got queen 3 of clubs. And Art's just going to limp in. Nicky P's got pocket 7, so I imagine he's going to raise it up here.
Yeah, you got to do something aggressive here.
He does raise it up. Makes it 3x.
3 big blinds.
Art's got the queen 3 of clubs. Let's see if he's going to limp call here.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much always what you're doing here. Occasionally you can like limp jam some hands that look like that at certain stack depths, but I think pretty much you're just limp calling.
He does limp call. Flops jack 6-3, so Art flops bottom pair. Nick has second pair, so he's got to be liking his spot here.
Yeah, this is a good flop for Nick. There's only 3x spot to play. There's one over on the board. You've got some backdoors. He has a very strong hand. Strong but vulnerable. A lot of Art's hands are going to have two overs here, and you'd really like to just bet and get a fold from queen 8 or whatever. So I expect Nick to pretty much always bet this flop.
Well, he does bet. Bets 3.8 million chips. Art has bottom pair. I don't expect him to go away quite now.
Yeah, never going anywhere here.
And he does call. So turn brings. Turn's going to bring a 5. So Nick turns the gut shot.
Yep, that's a great turn for Nick. Anything that's not an overcard is a great turn. And you'd rather the 5 than the 2. So you pick up the gutter as well.
So Nick does check it. Now Art has a decision. He could bet here or he could check back. See what he decides to do.
Yeah, I think either one is okay here. I think it's a mistake to always bet in this spot, but it's a mistake to always check as well. I think you just got to do some of each.
Well, he's going to go about 1/3 pot here.
Yeah, I think this is a fine play.
Then Nick seems like he's got a pretty easy check call. He does check call.
Yep.
River comes down. It's the 4 clubs. So he turns that back, he rivers that backdoor straight. And now he's got a little under a pot size bet left. 16 big blinds, 22 big blind pot. Is he ever thinking about leading
Nick
here?
finds a lead here. I think that's a play you can make.
Mm-hmm. Let's see what he does. Yeah, if he goes all in here, he's hoping
not
he
going
has
to be
2
all
pairs.
in. It's going to be for a smaller size.
Smaller size, you think?
Yeah.
Well, he does shove.
Oh, he does shove.
And now he's kind of praying Art has maybe a deuce, 2 pair.
Yeah.
Maybe hero's a jack if he has a jack somehow here.
Yeah, hard to see him calling with this hand.
Yeah, especially when we see him pull the jack high flush. I mean,
Don't think you're really going to lose to a bluff, but it's not the most attractive call.
yeah, he does end up folding that hand. And we move on. So now we're getting a little bit more even in chip stacks here as the blinds. And actually, we're just more even in chips, 40 to 40 big blinds here, basically. So they've kind of clawed back here.
Yeah.
So Art limps the button with 7-3 offsuit. Nick checks the option with 8-5 offsuit. Flop comes down ace, ace-7. Art's going to go ahead and make the min bet, 1 check 2 here with the 2 pair.
I think Nick has enough hand here that he's not folding flop. I think you can call or raise. Looks like he goes for raise here.
Mm-hmm. He goes out with a raise. Art, once again, not loving his spot. I mean, you'd assume your opponent's going to raise most of their aces when you limp on the button. So
at 40 big blinds deep, not anywhere near all of them.
Some they're going to check back. So Nick does turns a good hand. He has the best hand now, so he turns to 8.
Yeah, that's a good turn. Nick has every reason to think he could be ahead here.
He does bet. He bets about 2/3 pot, it looks like.
Yeah, that's right.
See what Art does. 7-3 offsuit.
I don't think you can be folding just yet.
Well, he does. He does lay it down.
That makes the flop check raise look real nice. If
he's folding that
any
turn.
over to the 7 can turn, you bet and get a fold from a 7. Yeah, it's a pretty tight play.
Yeah. We've seen this guy play pretty tight so far.
Yeah.
Kind of tight, different, like tight, weird kind of in some spots, right? Like a little bit loose in some spots, a little bit tighter in some other spots.
Yeah, if you're not used to playing heads up, it can be very tough. The hand values are just so much different than, even if you're a ring player and you're experienced at playing like button against big blind, you've played some kind of similar spots. But the hand values are really considerably different heads up.
Yeah.
I mean, small blind versus big blind has its similarities, but the ranges take really different shapes because the small blind is out of position. So, yeah, if you have to just study heads up as its own thing to really know how it works.
That's what it seems like. It seems like all these I mean, we like the payouts, right? There's over 100 buy-ins for first place. And so the most important part of the tournament for you is going to be when you get shorthanded and when you get heads up. So if you're a ring player that has never really worked on your heads up game, and how could you unless you're purposely studying it, because you're not going to get heads up very often. So I imagine a lot of players out there have no idea what they're doing once they get down 4-3 two-handed, and they're just kind of clicking buttons and praying for the most part, when that's the most important part of the tournament is the heads up.
Yeah, that's a really tricky thing about tournaments, is that these spots are super important to your EV, but they don't come up all that often. So it's really difficult to know how to manage your time and energy in preparing as a tournament player. And yeah,
it seems pretty wild. I mean, that's one thing I've been noticing studying the tournaments is just, you make a final table and then you're like, oh, what do I do now? Right? It's like a different game versus trying to get to the final table and actually getting there.
And that's why you see guys like Nick who are playing a lot of small field tournaments, all these live tournaments with like 20 to 50 players and online tournaments with 20 to 50 players, and they're just playing dozens of final tables a year, and they really excel when they get to final tables in large field events like this.
Interesting. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, obviously, like I said, we did cut down. This was a 3-hour match, so there was a lot of hands we cut out. I mean, both players are playing tough. They're battling back and forth. It looks like here Art's going to raise up ace-9 offsuit. They're both even in chips, 40 big blinds here. So he raises up ace-9 offsuit. Nicky P is going to call with the 5-6 offsuit, flops middle pair, and Art's going to continuation bet. See what Nick does.
Mainly call, though you can raise, I think.
A lot of raising going on. That's a no limit hold'em, man.
Yeah.
He does check raise. He raises it up to 5.6 million.
I wonder, we're only seeing the edit, but I wonder if he has a read here that Art is c-betting a bit more often than he should be.
Mm-hmm. Well,
because both like that 8-5 and then the 6-5 here seem like the kind of exploits you would make if your opponent was just betting every time on the flop.
Well, we're having him on the podcast tomorrow. We'll ask him about that and see what he says. We got to play him some of these hands. So he does check raise. He takes it down. And just like that, he's going to be a little bit of a chip leader here. So king 8 offsuit here for Art. He's going to raise it up. A little over a minimum size raise. Nick's got the queen 9 offsuit here. Does call.
Yep, mostly call. You can 3-bet. You're deep enough for this to get in your 3-bet and fold range.
This is a crazy hand. So Nick flops top pair with the queen kicker. Art's got the gut shot straight draw, and he's got 1 over. Nick checks. Let's see what Art does. He checks back. Turn is going to be an 8. So Art does turn second pair. Nick still has top pair.
Yeah,
maybe this isn't as crazy as I thought about.
I think Nick is often going to bet small here, sometimes check. Yeah.
Does bet small.
Art obviously has to call this on the turn. That's still a pretty big hand. Nick can easily just have stuff like Jack 8, 10, 8, Ace 6.
Well, Art does call.
Yeah.
River's a 5, so it pairs the bottom card. Probably not scared of your opponent having straight here with the 7. Once he does just call, once he doesn't bet flop and he just calls the turn.
I mean, he could. I think you should get here with a 7 occasionally, but yeah, it's not a major concern. If I'm in Nick's shoes, I think queen 9 is good here most of the time.
What kind of size do you like here, Ike?
Pretty small. I mean, you can run into trips a bunch. I think you could go third pot, or you could go like 3/4 pot.
Nick goes pot.
Pot, yeah.
Big size bet here. Puts Art in a real tough spot here with the 8.
Yeah, I think this is reasonable enough. I think this is on the high end of what you can get away with betting, but seems all right. And if you have some reasons to believe that, like, he'd mostly c-bet a 5, he'd often raise turn with a 7, you can tweak the range you're expecting to see from him there in a way where suddenly full pot
Makes
is
sense.
like easily the best thing to be doing.
Yeah. So Art is very short stack at this point in time. He's got 14 big blinds left. He's got ace 7. Nicky P's got ace 4. Flop comes down ace jack 8. Nick Petrangelo flops.
It goes limp check pre here, which is interesting, but I think fine from both sides.
On both sides. So Art does have top pair. He's got the hidden top pair. Nick's got top pair, nut flush draw. Art's going to bet here.
I think you can call or raise from Nick's side here.
The only bad decision's folding.
Art went for the larger size there. He didn't min bet, which makes me more inclined to just call.
Well, Nick does call, turns the nuts, and he's obviously loving his spot. He's probably thinking, how do I potentially win the tournament here?
Yeah. And I think you mostly do it by just check calling down.
So let's see what Art does here. Pot's 5 big blinds. He's got 13 big blinds left. He goes near pot here with the ace-7.
Yeah. And I think you just call here. If you had a lower flush, you could consider putting it in. 2 pair for sure, you'd be thinking about putting it in. But you block them having an ace, and you don't need to protect your hand at all. So yeah, just check or just call.
So Nick does just check call, and River's a jack.
I wonder if Nick is going to think about leading here. That's a pretty appealing play. There's less than pot to play. And if you're worried your opponent's going to check behind an ace now, which I definitely would be, leading is appealing.
Let's see if he does it. He does check.
Yeah, that makes sense too.
Only way you can play this hand wrong is if you fold, then I'm flush at any point in time here.
Yeah.
So Art here, he's like, I got top. What's he going to do here? Okay.
I'm guessing he's going to check here.
Yep, he does check back. So Art checks back, and just like that, he's down to 9 big blinds. So Nick Petrangelo, cruise control right now. And Art is going to pick up ace, king of diamonds on the short stack. So king 4 offsuit, 7 big blinds. Nick just shove.
Yep.
Art's going to call, and he's going to be at risk here. 77% favorite to double up. See if Nick can finish him off right now. 10-7-6 board. Nick's going to need a 4 or a backdoor straight draw. Turns a deuce, and he's going to need a 4 or 4 only here to eliminate Art. River's an ace, and Art's going to stay alive here. He doubles up a little bit, and he's still alive. 16 big blinds. Yep. Still alive here. Art still battling back here. Queen deuce going to raise it up. Blinds went up 700,000, 1.4 million.
Mm-hmm.
He makes a min raise. Nick's got the queen 7 of spades. He's going to call.
Yep.
Flop comes down. Queen 6 of deuce. So both players flop top pair. Art's got the German 2 pair, top and bottom pair.
Pretty big cooler. Gonna expect to see Nick get doubled through again here if he doesn't improve most of the time.
So Art is going to bet very small. 1.4. He's going to bet 1 big blind.
I think Nick is raising a lot more than calling here. Oh, he calls.
Just call. Turn is a deuce, and Nick's drawing dead. Now Art does have the full house. Obviously,
well, he has one out to chop, I guess.
Oh, yeah, 1 out to chop the queen, yeah. So let's see how Art get all the chips here from Nick Petrangelo. Let's see what he does. He bets 4.3 million.
Can't imagine doing anything other than calling here.
Yeah. Yep, Nick just call. River comes down, and it's a 10 of diamonds. So pot's 12 big blinds. Art's got about a pot-sized bet left. Checks to him. I imagine he's just going to shove it all in.
That certainly looks like what's going to happen.
And then you're Nick Petrangelo. You got the queen 7 here.
Yeah, I'm not trying to fold that hand.
Well, let's see what goes down here.
Be pretty big fold.
Well, Art does ship it in. See if Nick can get away with from this one. I mean, that'd be a realistic read. If he folds here, he's obviously like got a pretty good understanding of what this guy's strategy is and what this guy's tendencies are. If he can get away from the queen 7 here.
Absolutely.
Right? Like, he just doesn't think this guy's bluffing enough here to call with top pair. So he's in the tank. He does call, still be chip lead, so he can afford to call here and lose. He does fold his hand.
That is a hell of a fold.
Yeah, that's a big fold right there. I mean, the commentators went crazy when they saw that lay. They couldn't believe he laid that hand down, but obviously...
Yeah, you don't fold top pair heads up 20 big blinds deep very much.
Yeah, right.
Especially when it's the deuce that paired on the board and the guy open raised. Like, they don't have the deuce very much at all. They're going to be mainly limping their deuce X combos. Yeah, that's just a really big fold. That really shows he knows what the guy's up to.
Right. I mean, that's Hello, Fozo here. He limps 6-3 offsuit on the button. He's going to min bet the flop. Ace, queen, 7. Art's got the flush draw here. So now he's got a little momentum on his side. He's chipping back up a little bit. 26 big blinds. He turns the 8. So his hand improves. See what Nick does here. 6-3 offsuit. Checks back.
Yeah, you need just a little bit more to keep betting there. And I really mean just a little bit. Like 9-4 might be good enough to keep betting. But 2 unders to the 7 with no straight draw, I think you just shut it down.
So, Art checks. The pot's 6 million, 4 big blinds. Nick's got the blocker here. He's got the 6. He could think about doing something.
Yeah. I mean, he has a hand that's never going to win at showdown. And I think betting is very reasonable.
Well, he goes 2x pot.
Oh, that's fun.
And Art snap calls him with the 8. So Art is had enough of his bullshit.
I think that's a good call, yeah.
Art snap calls with the 8, and just like that, he's back into chip lead. So Nick told me that he had him down, and he came back. Now I see why he came back after this hand. So Nick with a little misstep there, and Art with a hell of a call right there.
Yeah.
So now, still alive here from Art. Ace, queen offsuit. He's going to raise it up. King 10 suited in the big line. A couple good hands here, both players.
Yep.
See what Nick decides to do here. He does just call.
Yep. I think you can do something aggressive there, but you don't have to. And if you feel like post-flop's going well for you, it can often make sense to kind of dial back the pre-flop aggression and try and play a longer match.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, they've been playing a long match up to this point. And Nick does flop trips. 10-10 deuce board. Nick's got king 10. Art has backdoor straight draw, backdoor flush draw, and he's got the 2 overs. He makes
just a good high card hand already. You're kind of just betting for value with ace queen high on a board like that.
So he does bet. Just 1 big blind. Oh, I paused it. See what Nick does here. Trip 10s.
Usually raise, can call. Yeah.
He does make a raise.
I think easy continue for Art here.
Yeah, he's obviously seen Nick's playing very aggressive against him. He's attacking a lot of these min bets. Art does call. He's going to need a lot of help to win this hand. Turns a 5 of spades, so he does turn a flush draw. He's got the queen of spades in his hand. He still has got the 2 overcards.
Yep, they just both have big hands at this point.
So let's see what Nick can do here. 21 big. So he bets 8.3. So that's a little over half pot.
Yeah, it looks like about half pot.
Now we've seen Art play a little bit tighter in some spots, but I think he's going to call here with the queen high flush draw.
This would be a crazy fold.
And he does call.
Yeah.
River comes down. It's an ace.
That's bad news for Art.
That's real bad news for Art. Yeah, that's going to be it for Art. And now Nick. He's probably going to go all in here, and Art is going to snap call. He does ship it in.
Yeah, you can't be folding there.
Art does call, and just like that, Nick Petrangelo is going to take down the 6 Max World Poker Tour Championship event here on Party Poker. $490,000, I believe, for first place for Nick. I mean, that was a hell of a battle. Those are some fun hands, right?
Yeah, that was a good heads-up match.
Oh, yeah. That was a great match right there. So
Nick
we got to
played
see Art finishes in second there. Let's see the final payouts here. Final payouts are going to be, where are they at? All right, here's our final payouts here. Petrangelo takes home $494,000. Art takes home $368,000. My man Artsiom, I mean, listen, that's a pretty big payday. $278,000 for him. Patrice, $192,000. GHN, $128,000. Elior and Jake down there in the bottom. It
That's a big tournament.
Yeah, it feels like hours ago. And just like that, I mean, we're having these World Poker Tour Championship events. Every week they go down. They start on Saturday, and people are satelliting, a lot of satellites. We're doing the final table shows on these Fridays. And Ike, you're in the mix, right? You're competing in all these events, right?
Yeah, I've been playing most of them.
You plan the final table one or what?
I hope so.
So that'd be fun.
It's a tough thing to plan for with several hundred player fields, but
he's like, yeah, I'm planning the final table. Well, yeah, we appreciate you joining in here. I think I'm sure the audience out there, let us know what you thought about their audience. If you're still watching, if you learned something, any takeaways? Is there like maybe one takeaway you might take away here that you feel like maybe you something was re-solidified, or maybe you picked up on something, or
I mean that heads-up match just really does show the difference between somebody who's preparing for heads up and has a good bit of experience at it. And the typical other player in a tournament field, like Art was playing well through the earlier stages of the final table, and then I think it was pretty clear Nick had a big advantage when it got heads up.
Yeah. Well, that's how it goes sometimes. Shout out to Art for putting the battle in there. Shout out to Nick Petrangelo putting on a show. We're going to be doing the podcast with Nick tomorrow, which is going to be pretty exciting to have him on. First time we'll have him on. It's going to be on Saturday. And that's what we got, man. If you enjoyed this, if you're watching, comment below. Let us know what you thought. Like the video, subscribe, which I'll say at the beginning. Ike, thank you very much for joining us, my friend.
My pleasure. Happy to be here.
All right, guys. See you next week. Take care. Peace out.